You made it down here today. Larry McShane from the New York Daily News is here, and I'm glad you're here because we did actually get some Bruce Springsteen songs in here.
One of them
happens to be Dancing in the Dark, and Born in the USA, Born to Run, and Thunder Road, and Little Fleetwood Mac. Let's begin by welcoming you back. We had Larry here several times promoting his books, and as you probably are not aware of, and if you are, he's a 35-year veteran of the city reporter, currently with the New York Daily News here in New York City. The award-winning Seton Hall University graduate, was a two-time AP New York State Staffer of the Year. He is the author of Cops Under Fire, and he's also the author of Chin, the Life and Crimes of Mafia Boss Vincent Gigante. And he's also a wonderful author of the book that we had him here on a Saturday morning, like at 6:30 in the morning, about 6 months ago. The Secret Life of Mob Boss Ralph Natale, Last Don Standing. Larry McShane and Dan Pearson, welcome to the Teddy Smith Show on another avenue, but I'm glad you made it here. What do you like most about writing your books? I mean, I know you write crime stories. You always were interested in that, especially when you did the story at Sparks Restaurant several years ago. Nevertheless, you've written several crime stories throughout the years.
Yeah, of course. The good thing about a book is, unlike a newspaper story where you might have, 15 inches to tell a story, you have 250 pages to tell a story here. So there's a lot more nuance and, just space to delve into things that ordinarily, if you're writing a story, thank you very much, thank you. If you're just writing a daily story for the newspaper, you don't have as much space, and you don't have as much time to report it and research it.
What do you find most gratifying after all these years working at the New York Daily News? Is it the people that you work with, not only the stories that you cover? Is it, meeting, let's say, Greg B. Smith, for coffee in the morning, or is it something else? Or
well, the people definitely is the best thing. I don't think it's any secret that the newspaper industry has fallen on some hard times, and we've had some deep cuts in the staff. But the folks we have there are, they're all for one and one for all, and everybody's doing their best to put out the best paper that they can every day. I still enjoy getting up in the morning. I go to the bottom of my driveway and see the front page. That to me is still an exciting thing to do every day.
How much investigating goes into some of the stories before a story is published? I know they vary, I'm sure, either from a couple of days, maybe to a year or less.
Yeah, I just did a story about this scam that it actually nailed a bunch of people. We're right here, a bunch of guys on Wall Street. And that probably was like an 8-month job. But part of that was because, I was waiting to try and get some FBI documents in a FOIL.
And you didn't get them?
I did not get them. So at a certain point, it's like you're doing some project around the house. You have to work around the stuff that you can't get.
Why do you think you don't get some of those documents sometime? Is that some reason for that, or is it really hard to say?
Part of it, you used to get them much more quickly. I think now, because of the internet, there's such a volume. It used to be you would have to, like, if you wanted all the documents the FBI has on someone who died, Elvis Presley, let's say. You had to get a copy of Elvis Presley's obituary, cut it out, put it in an envelope with a letter explaining what you want, blah, 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 blah. In the case of the media, why you should not be charged. It was a bit of an effort. Then you had to go to the post office and get a stamp and blah, 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 blah. Now, all you do is you go on the FBI page, you click on a link, boom, you put in what you want. So I would imagine, without knowing this to be sure, that the volume is much, much higher than it was. I mean, it's the same thing has happened to some degree in New Jersey. There are people that you see all the time, these kind of community gadflies, who are constantly filing for public records,
Over the years, you've done some great stories about rock and roll musicians. I know we discussed that once on a previous show. Any one of those particular stories that come to mind now that you think was an absolute fascinating story, and you heard a lot of great things about that story, about a certain concert performer or a singer or anyone like that?
It's funny. I'm going to see Steve Van Zandt in Jersey on Sunday night, and I did a story about him when he was starting up I guess this was before he was on satellite radio. He had a syndicated radio show, and there's a lot of questions about that too. Radio business and satellite was changing things, but he went into that. you know, with no experience, right? He's just a rock and roll guitarist, and he made something out of it, and he wound up eventually running his own stations at Sirius. So I look back on that, and you know, he had no real reason, you know, to be self-confident that this was going to work, but he was, and he was right. You know, he managed to pull it off and actually go beyond that.